Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today I completely called in Audible. I'm making this episode the day of, so it's Monday, July 28th. I threw out the episode I did yesterday, or not threw out, I'm postponing it because I saw a post this morning when I woke up around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I was reading it from a guy, Dr. Nick Wadsworth. And it made me want to talk more so about these issues, but I'm gonna cover a twofer because the other one was from Zoran Stojkovic, and I hope I said that right. And if I didn't, I apologize. But these two different posts, while were posted about a few weeks apart, the one I saw this morning is more recent. The other one was about 2 weeks ago. I commented on Zoran's post, and it was about the CMPC. And I made a comment where I basically straight up said, plot twist, CMPC is more crippling than it is helpful. And as always, it caused an uproar. I saw people in the comments, not mad, but it was challenging their worldview because guess what? If you got it, you're probably going to think something about me making that statement. I even saw people in the comments liking the other people who were countering me who would never speak up on my post. So there's that. But basically, I'll start with Zoran's post and I'll go to Dr. Wadsworth. So with Zoran's post, it basically, to summarize, I'll put it on the screen, but to summarize, it says the field is ruthless. There are more mental performance practitioners than the system can support. A decade in, and many still aren't full-time. They aren't covered with benefits and rely on the same university taught methods. And this is something me and him can agree on. And I actually mentioned him about this, but we see eye to eye right here. Now, he talks about how the CMPC is to build staying power. There's maybe ways you can separate yourself, reading outside of the field, something I talk about. So far, you can see how we agree on almost all this. Ditch the psychoeducational model. I agree because I've even have people work on my team who always revert to let's teach box breathing, let's teach visualization, and get feedback from non-users. That's the big one. We made a episode last week with Harold Rose, Vanderbilt track and field coach. We talked about this. You have to hear what the market is saying. So, like I said, my response to this was plot twists. What if the CMPC is more crippling than helpful? And he asked, what do you mean? And I said, I'll make a video about it. And I never really got around to it, but here we are. So what I really meant by that is, it's not crippling in the sense that, learning these skills or doing this stuff is going to be useless. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the mindset of a person who is overwhelmingly gunning towards some credentials or letters after their name, they dilute the intrinsic motivation, and this is something we talk about in this industry, to be better. Because I'm telling you from the horse's mouth. In the last decade, I've had numerous interns or workers come through my business. They come and go like any business. But the difference with this industry is since I am of it and I've been thoroughly criticizing it in a way where my scrutiny is not coming from just, I don't like this. No, I've experienced it. So when I get these people trying to learn from me or get something from my business and build their repertoire, I can criticize this because they often always lead with, I want to get my hours. But then when in practice, I put them in positions where, hey, come up with this so we can put it into action with one of our contracts, real life work. And they freeze or they say, I wasn't taught this or I don't know. So what's the point of having the CMPC or gunning for it, but you still lack the ability to really practice? And this kind of goes with Zoran's point. And I think where we disagree on the CMPC, we may agree more than he thinks, because in actuality, I'm saying that it's crippling because if I go to get something and my sheer purpose of getting is to say that I have it to show credentials, and I've actually had interns tell me straight up, I want to have the credentials to be taken seriously and have credibility in this industry. And indirectly, it's not offensive to me at all, but it's like, I don't have it. So therefore, am I not credible? And I even challenged their thoughts and I said, think about this. I walked in the military, I walked into police departments, I walked into professional organizations. I've been brought in to speak at conferences, and I don't have a CMPC. This is not to say that it couldn't be beneficial, but someone once asked me, do you think about getting it now? And I'm like, all in all, it makes no sense to me. Unless, like say medicine or law, licensure is required. And that's where I think the problem is, going back to my point. It's not required. If you want this to be held to that standard, it needs to be required. And if it's not required, it's simply branding and marketing. CMPC is marketing. I don't care how you spin it. It's trademarked by ASP. It's their accredited certification. So when people say, hey, I'm going for my CMPC, and they put it in their bios and they're talking about how they want to get it, that's free promo for ASP. And I see through that because I'm a business owner. That's where it's laughable and why I say what I say. And then people want to counter me because guess what? You bought it. So of course you're going to protect your investment. You're biased. I'm biased too. I'm biased on the other side. I don't have it, but I still made a way. Now, does that mean it was easy for me? No. There's doors I might get shut out just because I don't have those letters, which is hilarious, but I don't really care at this point because I built my brand, my business, my skill set. That's the biggest takeaway. I'm very good at what I do. You can put me in almost any scenario, I'll figure it out. I get asked by major corporations, hey, could you come up with something? And within 45 minutes, I got something proposed to them. I've literally had days where I stopped what I was doing, made a proposal, got back, boom, new contract. These are things that they don't teach you in school, and they dang sure don't teach you with a CMPC. So that's why it says crippling when I have interns leave because they don't mesh with my quote unquote philosophy. But in actuality, it's not they don't mesh with my philosophy. They've been brainwashed to think that they have to have this, and that's why it's crippling. You limit yourself in the sake of getting something that you were told is going to take you to the next level. But every time I see ads post the newest CMPCs, I always think to myself, how many of them are making sustainable living after that? Some might work for the military doing master resilience. Some might be a cognitive specialist. Some might work for an organization, school, whatever. But how many? That's the stats I would like to see. I don't know. So that's why I think it's crippling, and I'm going to stand on that. Now, the other post kind of doesn't go directly hand in hand with this, but it does. And I'll paraphrase it, but I'll put it on the screen as well. But basically, it was a question to the sports psychology community. He wanted thoughts. He said, I had a phone call with a senior stakeholder in a professional sporting organization. I've had many calls like this with sports, law enforcement, businesses, etc. So having these calls are important. So Dr. Wadsworth, this is good to share because I talk about this all the time. The more we talk about it, we can get more insight because when you're talking to the people who make the actual decisions, you understand what's needed and what's not. Oftentimes, what cripples our field, I'll say it again, is because if you work directly for an organization like a sports team or a university, you're not sitting at the meetings where the budget is discussed. It's just a posting on Indeed or LinkedIn that says $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. You put in your resume. If your credentials make sense, you get the job. Great. There was no point where your skill set and the money paid had to be brought into question. But when I sit in these meetings, when someone wants to bring in Mind Body One, they're not bringing in just Nicholas Davenport. They're bringing in the business, the brand, and then I have people, whether it's me, whether it's someone else, and it has to make sense because one, I pay these people. So their skill sets need to make sense for what they're offering. And two, if we're going to offer these skill sets, is it something that the organization actually needs? And these are questions that this, I think, post goes over because he said he shared his thoughts. And as he started saying, this is what we can do, they realized, okay, maybe our budget doesn't fit that. That's what I got from it because this is business 101. Has to have a return on investment. And they wanted to know, like, what kind of outcomes can you see? And this is where I'm going to get critical of the industry again. You can't really measure the outcomes in the way, keyword, the way they want it. You can put together surveys, assessments. I talk about this all the time. They're subjective. So how much are you really getting from them? So the way they want to see it is, okay, if we work with this, how many players are going to get better? How much money we're going to make? You can't really dictate that. I've worked with numerous high-level athletes. I've won world championships, UFC titles, Olympics. And I can't sit there and say what I did is what made them do it. I can say it was a tool that helped them, and that's where it ends for me. But that's what they want to hear. So they led to saying that, okay, what if we brought in like an intern level, maybe a unpaid or a low paid intern? That way you get the bang for the buck. But the problem with what he said is you're going to get what you pay for, which is little to nothing because going back to my point with the CMPC being crippling, you're going to get these same individuals who want to get in this industry and you can afford that tier for those people. These entry level people aren't going to be able to think on their feet. Are going to be able to build. Now, you might have some diamonds in the rough. Don't get me wrong, because once upon a time, I was a graduate, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I think outside the box, and I've been like that since I was a kid. I was doing things that 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds weren't doing. That's me. But most people aren't that. So if you're going to lack the pay or not pay at all, you're not going to get the best services. So he posed the question is, what can we do about this? Or what do you think about this? And I'm giving my direct answer is, this is dead on. This is what I've been saying. So that's why I talk so much about being able to separate yourself, giving skill sets, because I know for a fact what I do, no one else is doing. And it's not being a contrarian or just outside the box for the sake of being outside of the box. It's the fact that I said I have to build a brand, build skill sets that make me worth giving X amount of money per session. If I want to charge $250 for a consult just to learn from me, I have to make that make sense. If I want to charge someone $2,000 to come speak for an hour, I got to make that make sense. It can't just because, oh, I want it. And that's what I noticed from these future or aspiring CMPCs. They'll put these prices because I see the industry standard, not realizing like, why would I give you $100 when I can give someone on Nick's team $100, $150 and get better? Really think about that. You guys have to understand there's some ego involved and you got to check your ego. I understand that I'm not the best, but I try to make it my duty to separate myself. So it's like, okay, I can't get that anywhere else. So I need to go to him. So back to Zoran's point, this is why it's crippling. We can't sit there and act like some credentials because in the mainstream world, one person told me, oh, you get to be on a registry. But guess what's crazy about that? The registry is housed on ASP site. Most people don't know what that is. So how do they know to look for it? Now, they might Google mental coaching. That's the first thing that comes up because of search optimization. Sure, fine. But it's not the first thing on their mind. A lot of people think therapy first. But the point is, it comes back to branding, and that's something a CMPC is not going to teach you. And that's the problem with it. So I brought these two posts together. That was not my intent for today's episode, but that's where we are. I'm getting a little more commentary like on these episodes. I might get back to more of the building the different skills because I made many others that work on a specific skill. But this one I really thought was a good one to talk about because the more the industry speaks on these things, people called me a pot stirrer. And that's not what this was. Anyone who thinks that you're small-minded, you need to think bigger. I'm not stirring the pot. I'm calling out things that aren't working. If you do what you always done, you're going to get what you always got. And if you do what you always done and it's not working, guess what? What you always get is going to be lackluster. And we have these problems where these organizations don't see the value. That's the main takeaway. They got to see the value and it's up to you to bring it. If you're not doing that, you damn well don't deserve to make the money for it. I'm sick of it. You can argue you want 70, 80,000, 90,000, 100, whatever your price is, your per session rate, whatever it is, you can argue all day that you want it. But until as a whole, as an industry, we bring things together to actually show that this industry is more than just, how do you feel? I want you to visualize. Because people get on me saying I'm knocking the foundations. I'm not. I'm saying you got to make that make sense to people who could care less. So I'm going to stop right here. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like I said, it was a spur of the moment, just putting it out there, but that's my pathology. Enjoy the rest of your week.